everybody, this is Meredith from the Papery Craftery.
And Bridget.
And we're back today to show how I make quilling paper citrus fruits. So these are something that are from way back, and I brought them back today just to do sort of an intro to summer. They are great for summer projects. I have made some bookmarks out of them, and I'll add that link down below, but just some summer citrus today. As always, let's start with supplies. We're going to be using a cork board, some pins, white glue, tweezers, and a needle tool. We're also going to need some wax paper for the top of your cork board, and a ruler will come in handy. I also have a template for this week, and you can find that on my website. I will link to the source down below. You're probably going to cut this apart to only use a few at a time, so grab some scissors. And because I'm making lemons on this template, I'm going to use dark yellow and pale yellow, and then also a little bit of bright white quilling paper. These are all going to be 1/8 inch width. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut up my template. This time I'm only going to be making one, but you can make multiples of these at a time if you want to. I'm just going to cut out 3 of them and put that on my cork board to start. So you're going to put your template down, cover that with wax paper, and then pin all 4 corners, making sure you pin both the template and the wax paper. Keep everything in place. And we're going to start by making the outside rind of the citrus wedge. For this, you're going to use the darker of your 2 colors. So this is going to be where I use the deep yellow. And what we're going to do is we're going to make some pegs. So pegs are 1 inch in length, more or less. I'm not measuring these. This is just an eyeball it kind of thing. If you want to measure it, go for it. But about 1 inch, tear that off. And you're going to use your needle tool. I would recommend a needle tool for this instead of a slotted tool so you don't get a little line in the middle. Roll it from end to end, and you're going to glue that while it's still on your tool so that it stays as a closed coil. For each of these little citrus wedges, you're going to need somewhere 18, 19, 21, something like that. I think I ended up making about 20 on average for this size template if you print it directly off the computer. So that's what each peg should look like. You're going to need more or less 20 of these to do each of the citrus wedges. And all you're going to do is just line them up all around the edge of the template. And I apologize for blocking the shot here, but all I did was slip one of these pegs back on my needle tool and starting off putting a little bit of glue under one, lining it up, sliding it off my tool, pinning it into place. This is just an easy way to place pegs because they're so small. You could use tweezers for this as well, but again, I like to just slide it back onto my needle tool and kind of line it up in place and slide it back off again. You don't need to probably pin every one of these, and you shouldn't need to put glue down on the template itself for every one of these. Usually I just glue the first one to the wax paper, pin it, add another with a little bit of glue where they connect, and then I'd probably pin every other one, and that should keep the shape well enough without having to have a million pins. When they're all done, you can see here they're all lined up more or less in the shape of the template. It's okay if they're not perfect. This is just crafts. It's not an exact science. And you can also use a small paintbrush to get rid of any excess glue that you see between your pegs. Now, while the outside of your citrus is drying, we're going to make a thick piece of quilling paper to use as the white part of the lemon. So the pith of the lemon. We're going to fold a long strip in half, and we're going to add some glue from the halfway point all the way to the end, making sure we don't miss any spots. It's a tiny line of glue all the way down. And once we get to the end, we're going to put both halves together again and smooth it out real good. This is going to make a nice thicker piece of quilling paper. If you've followed my videos for the last few weeks, I've done this process a couple of times, and it's just a nice way just to get a little bit more of a sturdiness to your paper. I'll add some links down below so you can go back and see the other videos where I've just done the same process. Once that's dry, you can start putting it onto your lemon or whatever you're making here. I like to run my fingernails down just to give it a curve, and then you can see right there it lines up right into that wedge shape. So I'm actually going to just add some glue right to the pegs there as they're still pinned into place. So run a little bit of glue all the way around, and then I will slide my white paper, there's the glue, and then I'll just slide my white paper right in and put a couple of pins in just to keep that in place while it dries. And then you just have to snip off any extra, and that is that. And now we're going to make the inside fruit of the citrus. This is the part, the real juicy part here. So we're going to need 3 lengths of 7 inches each. And what I'm going to do here is sort of a different coil technique. I don't really have a name for this one. I sort of just start from one end. I roll the whole paper down to the bottom. And then without taking my tool and my coil out of my tool, I'm just going to hold on to the end and just sort of open it up a little bit. I'm just kind of stretching out the coil. So I don't want to take it all the way. I don't want to just completely open it up. It's just sort of like an elongated scroll kind of thing. And then I roll it back up. So what ends up happening is it's just sort of a more open coil, but then the center is really tight. this is the trickiest part of this whole process, so bear with me for a minute. We're going to need that template back again. By this point, you should have your outside edge done, and the white pith that separates that from the fruit should be done. Probably dry by this point enough that you can take those pins out. Go ahead, and if you can, gently, remember if you need to twist, that might help get all those pins off of your template. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be forming each of these coils into a triangle shape to fill each of these little sections. So, but instead of just making a triangle and hoping it fits, we're going to kind of mold it as we go. So you're going to need pins again. You're going to need your glue. Tweezers might come in handy here. Your needle tool, you might need that. So just keep everything handy and close by. So to start, we're going to work in 3 sections here. We're going to do each triangle at a time. And we're going to add a little bit of glue just on the white paper there, just in the third we're working on. And then what happens next is sort of just a combination of pinching and pushing and pulling and prodding, and just kind of to get this coil to fill this triangle the best we can. There's no real way that I can explain exactly how you're going to do this step by step, except that move there, that pinch, is what's really going to help make it look like a triangle. So once you get it into space enough where you can sort of make that pinch, you'll see it sort of comes together, and then I like to use pins just to pull the 3 corners back to where I want. Doesn't have to be perfect, doesn't have to fill that triangle exactly. You can see these templates are handmade. These are not exact triangles here. So what you're looking for is just sort of that wedge shape. You can also use your pins inside that wedge to kind of pull the center of the coil around as you need to as well. You can see that blue one there. I put a couple layers in just to stretch it out, and that'll get your center, your coil, back to sort of the middle of the fruit. So I'm going to do each section at a time, like I said. So I'm working on the second one now. Add a little bit of glue, slide your coil in, and then just work it around so that it gets to be that triangle shape. What you do not want to do is you do not want to add any glue between the 3 sections of that light yellow paper. We're going to be adding in a little bit more white in there in the next step. So you don't want to add any glue other than the back of the fruit itself onto that white paper. You can see here, this centerpiece is really giving me some grief here. I got a pin stuck in it, and I just can't seem to get it to go exactly to the shape I want. But if you just keep moving it around, the most important thing, you don't let that glue in the back dry before you get it into shape. So I just keep maneuvering it. I just keep using pins and my fingers and my needle tool just to get it to the shape that I'm looking for. That might just be about it there, even though it has the tail sort of sticking up there. That might be, if I just move this back to the center. Oh, there we go, move it back to the center, and then I can move that corner over a little bit. This is sort of a game, just to get the paper to do what you want, but it'll all work out in the end. the third section is working a little bit better for me. This seems to be the one that's been easiest to go in. It didn't have a lot of push and pull to it. I can get it into place pretty easily. There's an aerial shot. But I do want to move the center of that last one over a little bit. So I'm just going to stick a pin in it, just move it a little bit, fill up some of that blank space. Just a hair. And I could have done that to the middle one as well. After leaving that for a few minutes, getting everything to settle up, you can start taking your pins out, and your coils should pretty much stay where they are, even though you didn't use a ton of glue on this part. And this is where we get to the last step. Remember I said before, you don't want to add any glue in between each of those lemon segments, because you're going to end up sliding some of that double thick white strip that we made before. You should have some extra. We're going to slide that in between each of the sections, because if you picture a citrus fruit, it does have each section is separated by a little bit of white. So tear off a bit and add a little bit of glue to each side and then slide it right back in. You don't have to worry about measuring this, because you could just cut off the excess after you're done. So now you are ready, once everything's dry, to get your citrus off of your template, and you can do that by just running your needle tool between the wax paper and your quilling, and it should pop off pretty easily. And once you can see there is a good amount of negative space in that light yellow part where the fruit sections are, but I like that look. I think it's a good trick to have in your back pocket. If you wanted to use full coils for these without stretching them out, you could totally do that too. And I just wanted to show some other examples you could do with the same template. I've made limes, I've made oranges. Most important thing you want to remember is to use a darker color for the outside where the peel is, and then a brighter color for the inside where the juicy part of the fruit is going to be. And then I've also done this to make watermelon wedges also. And for that, I think I use a meadow green for the outside, like a Kelly green. And then the inside is a deep rose. I'll leave a link to that post down below. That is it for these quilling paper citrus. If you have any questions, don't forget to leave them down below, and I will help any way I can. As always, if you like what you see, don't forget to like and subscribe so you can hear about when I make my next video. And we will see you then. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.